Hey guys, good evening to you all. This is Lydia here, coming to you from Build Yourself Inside. And wanted to bring you another little helpful nugget if you're on this journey to maybe change your body in some way and maybe you feel like you're like trapped in a prison. So let me tell you a little bit about me. I struggled with, my life revolved around food forever. Like from the moment, the earliest in my life I can remember, my life has always been about food, and especially being Greek, if I felt like I couldn't have something, like because I wanted to change my body, I used to pout and I used to get angry and frustrated, which kind of doesn't make sense, right? Like it's not in alignment with our real goals if we're getting angry at the quote sacrifices that we need to make in order to get to what we think we want, right? So I got into competitive bodybuilding about, 5 years ago, and it's been a really interesting shift because I've always had a history of eating disorders, and when I was a kid growing up, I had a problem with overeating, and then that overeating turned into binge eating when I was trying to go the opposite direction. When I was trying to take off the weight, I developed binge eating. And then right before I got into binge eating and purging, right before that I got to the point where I had that first thought, I went and sought help. Like the minute I realized that I wanted to purge after I binged, I immediately hired a nutritionist because I knew there was something wrong there and I couldn't live there. I was not going down that rabbit hole. So I wanted to explain to you all how I took care of this permanently, how I took care of my life revolving around food. And then let's say, okay, I want to go take off some weight now. What would happen is or if I did a bodybuilding show, I used to pout, and I would walk around town and I would see people eating pizza and I'd see people licking their ice creams, and I would get angry and frustrated at myself but then I'd sit there and rationalize. And say, well, I'm getting something better. I'm getting a hot body, right? Like all us fit people sit there and tend to rationalize our way. Try to compensate for what we're pushing ourselves to do what we think we should be doing, right? Because if you're actually not enjoying the process, there's a deeper reason, there's a deeper problem going on there. That's not something I'm going to get into this video. You can tune into my future videos. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about values. But what I want to focus on in this video is how I really got over the pouting about what I couldn't eat when I was trying to take off weight, or even in my off season, even when I wasn't competitive. Hey guys, welcome back. Okay, so let's try this again. I don't know why I get such horrible reception here, but if I lose you guys again and I don't come back, I will do this video again. Anyway, let's jump right back into it. Right. Oh my God, John. So here's what we do. We put ourselves in this prison, right? We give ourselves a goal that we can eat blank once we get to our goal. And already you're setting yourself up for failure, right? Now you're telling yourself, well, now you're squeezing yourself so you can't have this pizza or whatever it is. And then the minute you get to your goal, what are you going to do? Are you going to be moderate? Are you going to have a little bit of it? No, right? It doesn't work like that yet. And this is why I teach flexible dieting. This is why I don't give people a cookie cutter program to work with and be like, okay, here's your meal plan, have at it. That's what you eat every day. That's just creating another eating disorder, and that is something I don't follow that kind of rule. I teach my clients how to do flexible dieting, how to eat what they enjoy, so that this is a maintainable lifestyle. So how I really got over my emotional attachment to food altogether, not my severe ones where I had obsessions with peanut butter and all that stuff, and you guys have probably been following some of that. What I've been noticing in a lot of my clients and a lot of people I talk to who struggle and they pout and they get frustrated, they're like, oh, I want to be eating this like everybody else, and I want to have this, and I want to eat my carbs, and I miss bread, and first of all, know that you're doing that to yourself. Know that you're doing that to yourself. You're putting yourself in that mental prison of, I can't have this until I'm this. Or I can't have carbs ever again. Or I can't have ice cream ever again. Or I can't have sugar ever again. I did this. I did this for years. And it was horrible. It was horrible. That is not maintainable. I'm sorry. Keto could go, go jump off a cliff. Like, keto is just not maintainable for me. I enjoy my bread and I enjoy my oatmeal and ice cream. So you better believe I'm going to have that. And so let's get back to what my biggest the biggest thing I noticed that was really congruent with a lot of people who I talked to who struggled with some level of emotional eating was that, now don't take this the wrong way, hear me out, okay? The biggest problem I noticed, and this is the problem I had, is like I didn't have a life. That's basically what it came down to. I mean, other than my eating disorders, my severe ones, when I kind of cleared all that out, all the gunk out, the real problem here is like my life revolved around food. And I saw a quote one day, and the quote said something along the lines of, if you're feeling bad about what you can't have, if you're feeling like, if you're upset at what you're not allowed to eat because you're trying to get to this goal, stop making your life about food. Stop making your life about food. And I tell you, I wish someone would have said that to me when I first started this whole thing, like 8 years ago. That little quote would have saved my life. I didn't realize I was doing that. I didn't realize I was making my life about food, that I was putting myself in this prison where I can't be happy unless I have a six-pack and I'm eating a giant pizza. That's when I can be happy. And guess what? That just doesn't work for a lot of us, right? Especially us women. We struggle with keeping off a lot of the weight, and we're not going to be able to fit in a whole pizza, right? Binging is always going to sabotage our goals. And that's essentially what I was saying to myself. I can be happy when I'm allowed to binge, but also look good. And now notice the conflicts in that statement. And it wasn't until I became conscious about the rules that I was giving myself, how impossible they were, and realizing that, no, I didn't have a life out of the gym. I didn't have a life outside of bodybuilding. I didn't have a life outside of eating right and staying on my plan. And that is honestly people's biggest problems who struggle with relationships, who struggle with their career. They don't have the balance, right? They don't have another life outside of that. And when you don't, and all your focus is there, I mean, it was miserable for me. It was, God, honestly, the most miserable 7 years of my life. And it was really interesting because a lot of people who look at my pictures would say things like, wow, you look really good. You must have been so happy after you made that transformation. And I could honestly say I was the most miserable I've ever been in that shape, It wasn't until I came out of it, I came out of competitive bodybuilding, I came out of the obsession. I was actually forced to put on weight because I had hypoglycemia. I was pre-diabetic. I put on 40 pounds out of eating out of panic and anxiety. And it really showed me, it forced me to realize where true happiness comes from. And it forced me out of obsessing over my diet, but it also forced me to get a life outside of bodybuilding and outside of what my body looks like, or like outside of what relationship you don't have, or outside of what career that you can't, or job that you can't stand, like you're keeping yourself there because you've given yourself a rule that unless you have this, unless you have a relationship, you can't be happy. Unless you have a six-pack, unless you're tight and toned, you can't be happy. Unless you're making X amount of money or you have this level of status, you're not going to be good enough. These are all rules that you're making. Nobody else is doing this. And until you become conscious of your own rules that you're setting for yourself, you can't undo what you're doing right now, right? It doesn't make any sense. You don't know what you don't know. So, the takeaway from this video is, if you're obsessing over, like, your body, if you're obsessing over food that you can't have and food that, oh, everybody else is eating this and everybody doing that, like, man, like, these are the type of people I love to work with, because these are the type of people I can set straight. And you can absolutely get to your weight loss goals by eating what you enjoy and not doing low carb and not doing no sugar and not doing all these really strict this disciplined lifestyle, and by also having a life. When I started my business, like, I'll tell you right now, like, yeah, I have my ice cream and I have my treats and whatnot, but other than that, like, outside of that, my diet is pretty plain. There's a lot of salads. I eat kind of the same thing almost every day, but I hardly notice what I'm eating. Because I'm so busy with the rest of my life. I'm so busy, excited to work with my clients, and I'm so busy, like, working on all my admin stuff and going to events and going on, like, road trips. And I mean, I hardly even notice when I'm eating more. I'm literally like, I'm like this, like, okay, I just got to pound down whatever is packed, And when you don't have that life outside of your diet or even transforming your body, if you don't have a life outside of one particular goal, know that it's going to be an obsession and it is going to be an uphill battle. Now, I have often thought about doing a video about creating an amazing social life for yourself and creating a life that you love, and I've kind of covered this in little bits in past videos. This would obviously be a pretty long video, but I will cover this in future videos, how to build like a social life that you love, and get rid of the wrong people to make room for the right people, start doing the things that really mean the most to you, and how to figure out what that is too. Because that takes a little inner work to figure out, and time, right, and effort. So this is kind of part of like the life purpose portion of the training that I do with my clients. And a lot of NLP and hypnosis can help uncover this as well, which is why I'm really getting trained up in it, and I really love it, and it's saved my life. God knows, hypnosis has saved my life. But I want you to take this, if you're tuned into this video, you probably thought about this at some point. You probably had that thought to yourself, like, well, I'm kind of trapped in this place where, like, okay, I want to look a certain way, but I have to eat a certain way to look a certain way. Well, okay, that's kind of true to an extent, but first of all, why are you focused on that in the first place? Why are you focused on what you have to do to get to your goal? Because it isn't what you want, your goal. Isn't that what you really want? Not the crappy food, right? So that's kind of what you have to start deconstructing, start doing a little introspection and figure out maybe it's not the path you're supposed to be on, right? Maybe you need to kind of back the throttle and start going in a different direction with your career or your relationships, with your business, whatever, finances, whatever. There's usually another part of your life that's suffering if you're doing really, 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 really well in another part of your life. So shoot me any questions, any comments that you have down below, and feel free to keep following along on my blog. Like, as I said, I'll keep posting. I always post videos on how to help you guys through, seriously, life's deepest and darkest situations. Because trust me, I've been there. I've been obese. I've been bullied. I've had a near-death experience. I've been pre-diabetic. Like, I can almost think there's there's no end to the list. But I'm not saying I've had it the worst. There's definitely people out there who have had a lot worse than me. But I'm just living proof of perseverance, and I like to help you guys out. So let me know what you always want to hear, what you want to see, what you want to feel. And I'm going to check out. I got a client coming in a second. But shoot me any questions and comments below, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.